And we're live. So, hi Nish, welcome. Thanks
Hi,
for
Dave. Thanks for having me.
No, brilliant. Thank you. No, it's great. It's great to have you. How are you, first of all?
Very well. I'm very well indeed. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, like I said, I must admit this is quite a surreal experience for me. Obviously, because I've seen you obviously a lot on TV.
Sure.
I've not seen you live yet, but obviously I've seen you live, like say Mock the Week and Mash
Yeah,
Report
sure.
and so on. So yeah, and obviously, one of the biggest names in stand-up, so yeah, it's great that you come into Hull. I know you performed in things like, well, I saw a clip the other day that you performed in America as well.
Yeah. I did some shows. Like the last tour that I did, which finished up in the UK in 2019. I just went straight from there to the States for a week, and I did some shows in New York and a show in LA, and I did a spot on Conan O'Brien's talk show, and it was very exciting.
Nice. Yeah, that's it. So, this is now, from what I was seeing yesterday, doing a bit of, I mean, you're obviously so famous, you've got your own Wikipedia page. So,
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to get my own yet. Wait,
Well,
some sort of fan want to set one up for me.
yeah, go for it. You just got to ask people to do it. I'm pretty sure I only have a Wikipedia page because I
Your mum.
demanded someone give me one on a TV show probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I think that's the only reason I have a Wikipedia page.
Fair enough. Well, on your Wikipedia page, it outlined your tours. So am I right in saying that this is your 6th tour?
This is I think Wikipedia has got slightly confused on some, not for the first time. Wikipedia has got slightly confused. It's my, so it's my. Oh God, I'm actually losing track of. I'm actually losing track of the time. It's my 4th national tour.
Okay.
But I did 3 shows before that in Edinburgh. So that I think that's where the 6 figure comes from. So I did 3 shows in Edinburgh, and then my 4th show in 2015 I did for the month of August in Edinburgh, and then I took on a national tour. And then I did the same thing in 2016, and then I did the same thing in 2018 and 19.
Right.
And so so this is my kind of like 4th proper national all over the UK tour.
Yeah. And it's kicking off in Hull. This is your first one, apart from you did your previews in London.
Yeah.
But the proper tour gets going next week, and Hull's the first venue, isn't it?
We start in Hull. There's nowhere to go but down from Hull.
So what I was going to say, so when it comes to like deciding like venues and stuff, do you have a say in that, or is that all down to the promoters?
It's a combination of the two. The promoters will suggest things, and then I have to sort of rubber stamp them and say that I'm okay with them. So so it's and you sort of, with the tours, you always want to find a balance between going, well, let's definitely go back here, and here, and then let's also break some new ground as well.
Right. So because you've not performed in Hull before, have you?
I have.
You have.
I did a tour show, I think in 2016, in a venue called the Fruit Space.
Oh yeah. Well, sadly, that's closed. Well, it's not closed. It's renamed. Pretty much.
I understand that it's not the same venue anymore. And I think, if memory serves, I think there might have been about 15 people there, maybe like 15 or 20 people there, and it was like one person had bought about 10 of those people.
Right, I see.
I might be misremembering the numbers, but what I remember is that one person had bought a significant chunk of the audience.
Right.
And so it wasn't a million miles away from doing a private party.
Yeah.
And I am thrilled to inform you that the ticket sales have much improved in Hull, which is a relief both for me, and I imagine a relief for the audience as well.
Yeah, that's it. Because obviously now you got to start off somewhere, right? And so for you, can you tell how did your comedy career start out? I mean, I'm assuming that was early days. If it's 2016 and only 10 people turned up, obviously I'm guessing 2016 was early days for you.
Well, it was early days for me, certainly, in terms of being on tour and being on TV. I've been doing comedy since. I mean, I did my first stand-up gig maybe in 2006.
Wow.
And so I was, and then, you kind of do the open mic circuit, and I was doing gigs sort of around town, and it just sort of slowly built up. And, I was still working an office job until 2013. The last year I was working part-time, but I was still working part-time. And then you start doing comedy clubs, and then you do Edinburgh shows, and then you get invited to international festivals. So I was going to sort of Australia and New Zealand, and
Wow.
doing gigs in India, and then you kind of start getting little bits of television. And then in kind of 2015, 16, that was when I started doing Mock the Week, Have I Got News for You, Live at the Apollo, and doing things that have a bigger national reach.
Yeah.
So, but with everybody, with every comedian you see, there's very few comedians that turn up on the television and you find out afterwards they've been going for 20 minutes. Like
That's right.
there's
Yeah.
everyone you see, that every new comedian you see has been around for at least 4 or 5 years before that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I can imagine, because I'm a big fan of comedy, right? So I love going to like comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Like there's one here in Hull, like a full-time comedy club. Since you've last been, there's a comedy club that's opened up full-time.
Great.
And I love it. And I love, like, people always say, like, they always kind of have this sort of misconception that, oh, if you go to a comedy club, it's not as funny as going and seeing like big names like you. And I always say, yeah, but it's not that they're less funny. It's that they have not been discovered yet.
No, and also there's a particular excitement to seeing somebody that you've never even heard of.
Totally.
That going to a comedy club and seeing someone you've never heard of. I mean, that's how I started watching comedy.
Yeah.
My uncle and cousin used to, just take me. I mean, I think people knew I wasn't 18. I was sort of 15 or 16. But I think because I was with two adults and it was the early 2000s and things were a bit laxer then with those kind of things, they would just let me in. And that was how I started watching comedy. I'd seen stand up on TV. And then I started going to comedy clubs, and it's very exciting, and that's and there's also a particular type of atmosphere in a comedy club that is particularly energized, there's an edge of danger in a comedy club that the whole thing could go terribly wrong at any point. And that's sort of part of that. A little bit of that is part of the excitement and why people enjoy it.
Yeah, totally.
But then, yeah, so it's all part of the ecosystem. We're very lucky in the UK and Ireland because of our size, but because we're all quite densely populated. You can make a living as a comedian without anyone having heard of you, because you can do the weekend gigs and go around the country, and the country is both small enough but also densely populated enough that I can do it when you start touring, I can do a show in Hull, a couple in Leeds, one in York, one in Sheffield, which especially when you talk to like friends of mine who are comics from America, you have to explain that like Bristol and Bath are like half an hour drive between the two of them.
Yeah.
And yet you can do 500 people in one and 500 people in the other, and it doesn't affect the ticket sales of either.
Yeah, that's it. No, it's really interesting. Well, like I said, obviously the venue that you're coming to next week is totally different from a comedy club. There'll be
it's an arena.
Yeah, well, they call it an arena. As much as I love the venue, it's not quite an arena. To me, it's a great like gig venue.
Yeah, sure.
It's ideal, like I say, the whole layout and everything, but it's obviously a lot bigger than a comedy club. It's got thousands of seats and tickets sold. So now, obviously, being your fourth tour, I'm going to say, so we ran a story last week on our site. We had there was like an interview.
Yeah.
You just want to tell us a little bit in your own words, like about the inspiration behind it. So it's called Your Power, Your Control.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit of inspiration behind that.
Well, the title comes from something my therapist said to me, where I needed to think less about hypothetical problems and focus more on what's in front of me and what's within my power and my control. And the bulk of the show is dealing with an incident that happened in December 2019 where I had a bread roll thrown at me at a charity gig, and because somebody didn't like jokes I was making about Brexit and Boris Johnson. And the sort of middle chunk of the show is really like the experience of that, the kind of partial circumstances of that, and then the kind of fallout from that, because on the day it's all quite funny, and then when it gets swallowed up into the news cycle and you start getting death threats, and it all gets very intense. So the show kind of follows that trajectory, and then what I try and do is use it as a window in which to view, a sort of a kind of funny window into some more serious conversations about race and immigration, and the way the sections of the press treat you if you're a second generation immigrant, as I am.
Right. Yeah, of course. Interesting. So,
but it's funnier than I've made it sound. I keep describing the show, and it sounds like
quite serious.
It sounds very serious. No, I've managed to, like, I've tried to inject it with as many jokes as possible. Like, I love, I grew up loving The Simpsons, and I love that style of comedy where it's kind of joke on joke on joke, and there's even like little jokes and little references that maybe the entire audience won't get, but some of them will get. But because it's such a small, fleeting thing, it doesn't really matter that the whole room might not know what's going on. And I like kind of just absolutely loading it up with as many jokes as I can.
No, that's good. I think, like I said, they are serious topics, but it's good to have a laugh about them.
Yeah, 100%. And that a lot of the comedy that I grew up, somebody just talk absolute nonsense for an hour, and it's absolutely great. Like when I was a kid, I used to love watching Ross Noble, and he would just talk absolute nonsense for 2 hours, and it was so funny and thrilling, and like he's still one of my favorite comedians. And then you could watch someone like Richard Pryor, who's, if you look at some of the stuff he's talking about in live and concert, it's really serious stuff about race and racism, and about his alcoholism and drug addiction, and but it's always, everything is done with a real light touch, and that's the fun thing about, and to go back to comedy clubs, that's the fun thing about going and watching comedy in comedy clubs, because you could have 4 people lined up who have completely different styles, completely different subject matter, and even if there are 2 people that are doing the same jokes on the same subject, they will have completely different perspectives on it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and again, why I love, like say, going to comedy clubs. It's great.
Yeah.
Now it was interesting because I actually wrote down this question about. So I've always wanted to ask a comedian about, like, because I'm a big advocate of like mental health.
Yeah.
Right. So I've suffered my own mental health over the last sort of 7 or 8 years, particularly. Right. But I saw the reviews come out yesterday, and apparently this show talks about your mental health. I mean, you just mentioned there about your therapist and that. So I always wondered, because some days I'll have like a really low day.
Yeah.
Just days of where I'm just like, I don't like, even I love what I do. Like I run my own business. I absolutely love what I do with Hull What's On. And, and it's amazing. So, but then when you have a low day, obviously then you start to question why you're having a low day and stuff like that. Like, I've got a great life and I'm loving what I'm doing. And then you have this low day and you just don't feel like doing anything. But with a comedian like yourself, if you're having a low day on a day when you're meant to be performing that night, what do you do?
Well, I can tell you what's very helpful. What's been helpful for me in the last year is actually having a mental health professional to talk to and work through some of that stuff. But I would say in the past, if you're having a low day, you kind of rely on the audience, really, and the audience and the adrenaline of being in front of a crowd can sometimes get you through that period. But also, in the early days when I was touring, I mean, last time I came to Hull, I came up on the train on my own and did the show and then went back the next day. Whereas now when I'm touring, I tour with a tour manager and a support act. And that's one of the best things about touring in bigger rooms, is that you can basically pay someone to be your friend. and genuinely just goofing around backstage and goofing around in the day and going to see a movie, that can really lift your, doing something that is completely unrelated to work.
Right.
And being able to step away from that, but not being not doing it on your own, because it was really hard to pull yourself out of a hole, you know, and actually some of the time touring with two other people is kind of their energy and enthusiasm is what can pull you out of that. And going and watching a film, or going and like just having a nice lunch somewhere in a different city, can lift you before you get on stage, and then the audience sort of carries you over the line, really.
That's amazing.
It is, yeah. I think the most important thing is taking time to do stuff that is not related to your job. I think at the moment everybody's it's really hard. It's a difficult period in history. And like there's a lot going on, and also it's very hard for people to make ends meet just doing one thing. It feels increasingly like if you have a 9-to-5 job that you work 9 to 5 and you can step away from, it's a really amazing thing to have, because there's lots of people like having to do side hustles. Like that phrase side hustle is such a weird thing, just because it makes it sound much more charming than it is, because actually what it means is I have to have a second job because my first one isn't paying me enough. It's a very benign phrase for something that's actually much more serious. But I think and hard as it may seem, it's like sometimes it's about grafting out some time to do something that you're doing purely for pleasure, and like forcing yourself to do that in the way that you would in the way that you like, well, I have to go to work, but sometimes you have to have that attitude to actually doing something fun and going and seeing your mates and doing something that you're doing purely for enjoyment.
No, that's some really good advice. I really like that. So that'll be so interesting, like say, to see how you sort of turn that in terms of like as a comedy, and how you talk about in your show. So
I mean, I think I've tried as far as possible to take quite serious subjects but make them goofy and lighthearted. I'm not trying to kill anyone's buzz.
That's it. Exactly. Well, that's it. Like in terms of like serious topics, right? That's it as far as I'm concerned. I think that's as serious as it gets, right? So I'm gonna have a little bit more fun now, because I want to see how much you know about Hull.
Okay.
So obviously, like you say, you've been to Hull before. Is that the only time you've been to Hull, or have you been any other time?
No, that's the only time I've been to Hull.
So you might not, like say, you went on the train, came back. Have you ever heard the Hull accent?
I mean, I guess so.
Because I don't have one.
Talk me through the specifics of the Hull accent.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to do some Hull slang. I'm going to do a little quiz that was devised by the BBC, funnily enough. Because as a nice little fact for you, you might remember that in 2017 Hull was the city of culture.
I do remember that, yeah, because I remember the trains being particularly posh, because I think in 2016 they were getting ready for 2017 City of Culture.
That's
and the trains had TVs in them, and I was like, hello Hull, here we go.
No, it's I mean, since then, obviously the city, because it had a bad reputation for many years and it had been underinvested, but obviously you don't
have to tell me. I'm from Croydon, and Croydon and Hull used to vie for the title of the worst place to live in the UK. Like, I remember there was a book called Crap Towns.
Yeah, that's right.
And it would either be Croydon or Hull that was the worst places to live in the country.
And that's it. And so you, like say, you can imagine what it's like when you live here. Obviously, a lot of residents, still people of sort of our age, I think a little bit older than you, it's but when you grow up with all that media, saying your place where you live is utter crap, right? Then people believe that, and even when you've got all this investment coming in, like the new Bonus Arena that you can find out, and we've got we've got a theatre in it, so like loads of investment, like everything's been invested in, and the whole place. So I'm a big advocate of Hull, because I'm not originally from Hull, I'm originally from Manchester.
Right.
A lot of outsiders who come into Hull, like, we're more advocates than the people who live here.
Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. But anyway, but that's a bit of background. Okay. The whole accent is something to get used to. Like, say, my accent's a bit of a mix of Mancunian and Yorkshire now.
Yeah.
So you won't hear the whole accent from me. But let me start with the quiz. All right. So let's see if you know some Hull slang. Okay. So this is from the BBC, right? And I'm saying that because I'll tell you something in a minute. Right. So the first word: if someone from Hull said they were nithered, what would they be? All right, here are your options. All right, they're nithered.
Yeah.
Tired,
Yeah.
hungry, cold, or annoyed.
Nithered. Nithered sounds like a sort of negative thing, so I'll say annoyed.
You're wrong. It's cold.
Oh, wow. Okay. All
To
right.
be fair,
Okay.
I've lived there for like 15, 16 years, and even I got that one wrong. Like, for some reason, I thought if they were nithered, they were tired.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I went with.
Whenever I hear a piece of slang from anywhere in Britain and they say something like "I'm nithered" or planked or whatever it is, I just always assume it means drunk.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Okay, so what colour are telephone boxes in Hull? Red, yellow, blue, or white?
I'm going to say yellow.
Well, BB is officially the cream.
The
So it's a bit of a trick question. But the BBC have got it listed as white, right? The official BBC are doing promoting City of Culture, and they put our phone boxes at white. But oh well, close enough. But honestly, I have to say that now because I know that when people watch this on our page, that will get pulled up big time. If they say it's white and people say it's white, they'll say it's green. Officially, they're cream. I used to work, and I don't know if you know the reason why is that Hull is the only place on mainland UK that doesn't have BT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the only place. It's just Hull is it's a very a very unique place. Right? It's very they love independence, and so when all the BT when the post office had all the communication network and BT, basically British Telecom, bought them all out, Hull said nope, we're hanging on to ours.
Wow.
And so it just hung on. So anything in an 01482 like telephone code that belongs to a company which is called KCOM.
Wow.
And like I said, that's why the telephone boxes are cream and not red.
My God! So is there going to be some sort of Hull separatist movement of people agitating for Hull to leave the UK?
Well, I tell you what, if you look back further in history, what's the stat now? It's 16. I think it's 1642. Someone will correct me, no doubt.
Yeah.
1642. Hull started the English Civil War.
Really?
Yeah. There's a whole story. It's a history thing. Like there's a whole basically King Edward, I think he was at the time, that came to Hull and they wouldn't let him in.
Oh wow!
They just said nope, and they just shut the gates on him and they won't let him in because he basically wanted all the weapons or something. And so that's what I mean. It's got this history of like we're part of the UK, we're part of England, but we're not. And so it's very funny like that. But yeah, like you say, it starts like, and that's why everyone's got this mentality here. If like they love, which is great because I love local independent like restaurants and shops and stuff. Which is great. I think it's a big movement of that in the UK anyway. But a lot of national players, if you come in, you've got to work hard to get them on your side.
Yeah, right.
It's like
there's a mistrust of
That's the kind of thing. Now you might have seen
enhancing my knowledge of Hull. Genuinely, the two things I associated the three things was one, that gig I did in Frew, and then the other two things were when Phil Brown told the Hull football team off on the pitch when he forced them to stay on, and the other thing, Philip Larkin.
Yes.
So those are my three pieces of knowledge about Hull.
Hey, I tell you what, if people are in for a real treat next week when you're in Hull, you're gonna have like a 4-hour show. Through history, you're just gonna have loads of it. So stood there just talking about the English Civil War and all sorts. But yeah, so right, next question. So you must have seen the Humber Bridge coming in.
Yes, I did.
No doubt, one of the biggest famous landmarks we got. Technically, it's not actually in Hull. It's in the East Riding, but we still claim it. We still claim it.
Yeah.
But basically, right. So, how long is the Humber Bridge? 1,000 meters, 2,220 meters, or 3,746 meters?
Is it B, 2,000 meters?
It is. It's 2,220 meters. Now, to be fair on that one, most people in Hull wouldn't know that either.
Yeah.
But they put it in the quiz anyway. Which food item did Hull famously create?
Oh.
It was invented in Hull. Boiled sweets, ketchup, or bacon cheeseburgers?
I mean, I might be wrong about this, but bacon cheeseburgers definitely feels like it's An American innovation. Only the Americans would come up with something so fundamentally godless. So for me, it's probably between boiled. I'll go boiled sweets.
You're right. It is boiled sweets. And we also apparently, like, we invented LCD. It was at Hull University. They had the invention of LCD.
Really?
Like famous inventions from Hull. Boiled sweets,
yeah.
LCD. I think there's something else as well. But I can't remember.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting. LCD screens. Who knew? Okay. Another slang one. If someone from Hull said they were mafted, what are they? Hot, confused, lost, or pleased?
I mean, I'll go pleased.
They're hot.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
My father-in-law used to say this all the time because he was always hot. He was a big guy. He used to come in from work, open all the windows in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And all the time he'd come in and say, "Oh, it's mafted in here. It's mafted."
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's hot.
Oh,
yeah.
that's
So
amazing.
it's mafted. Oh, mafted. Yeah. That's a funny one. That's why I probably never heard nithered, because he was never cold.
But mafted, you were all too painfully aware of.
Yeah, that's it. First time you hear it, he's like, mafted? What are you talking about? What are you about? But yeah, that's funny. That's funny. All right, the last one they've got on their quiz. So what's Hull's full name? Is it Newton Le Hull, Hull under Lyme, or Kingston upon Hull?
I actually do know that it's Kingston upon Hull.
Yeah, that's an easy one to finish off with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Newton Le Hull, that sounds way too posh.
Yeah. I do. For some reason, I do know that. I don't know why I know that, but I do know that one.
I think a lot of people do. Again, down to like history, it was originally called Hull because it was part on the River Hull.
Yeah.
And apparently, and then it became Kingstown. It was the king appointed it as the Kingstown upon Hull.
Yeah.
Where it comes from. There you go. Some more facts for your comedy show next week.
Fantastic. It's going to be a fact-based show in Hull.
I know, exactly. You'll be teaching people in the audience. Just get their hands up saying, does anyone know this? Like, just do the quiz with them. I'll send you the quiz after this and you can do it. But yeah, no, there you go. I thought that'd be fun. And
it was. You thought it would be fun, and it was, Dave. Don't undersell yourself. That was very enjoyable.
There's loads of other things like slang words. You know what? Have you ever heard of skeg?
No, what's skeg?
I'll put it in context. So I'll have a skeg.
Go for a dump?
It does sound like that, but no, it means I'm going to have a quick look at something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh,
okay.
I'll just have a skeg at that. But it does very much sound like that.
You have to say, for like geographically a small country, we don't half pack in accents, dialects, like specific slang words. I remember listening to an interview that an American did with Patrick Stewart, who is I think he's from Riding, but like originally, and he was sort of explaining to this guy, like, yeah, it's a tiny island, but my family and we all speak the same language, but my family says things that people from 10 miles away would not understand.
Yeah, that's it. No, well, there you go. Like I say, I thought I'd get a few things like that. I don't know if there's any. The whole talk again. If you get anyone talking to you next week from the audience, right? Yeah. This is what you got to look out for. It's the very low sounding vowels.
Right. Sure.
So
sure.
It's not no.
Yeah.
It's ner.
Ner.
And like when I started, the reason I'm in Hull, I suppose, really, is because I'm married to a native Valencian.
Right. Yes.
Right. And so another fact for you, they're called Valencians. She is. So when we first started talking on the phone, she said she was outside with a Kurt on. I said, Kurt? Who's Kurt? That's a boy's name. So I'm like freaking out, thinking, who's Kurt that she's hanging around with here? And what she meant was she was outside with
the coat on.
Yeah. So there you go. I thought it was a funny fact, but yeah. So there you go. You're all prepped for next week now.
Ready to rock.
Yeah, totally. You can kick off your tour, and you can go and spread the word on your other dates. You can say, I started off in Hull last week, and this is all about Hull. Yeah,
and let's all stop slagging off Hull and Croydon for once in our lives.
Totally, yeah, exactly. These are the best places to live. No, nice one, Nish. It's been brilliant. Thanks for talking to me. It's been great.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Dave. See you all in Hull.
Yeah. Do you want to give a last little plug? So.
Come to the show.
Yeah.
It's very funny stuff from a very nice guy.
Yeah, exactly. Bonus Arena next week, Wednesday the 2nd, 7:30 start, I think.
Yeah, Wednesday the 2nd, 7:30. Be there. Hull.
Who's warming you up? Who's your support act?
Kima Bob, my very good friend, is a very, very funny comedian, and
Very good.
I'm very excited that she's coming on tour with me.
Excellent. Thanks, Nish. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.
Enjoy. Take care. Bye.